The massive ship hung in space above Earth like a silver moon. Inside, Hyunwoo stood in a white hallway and tried not to shake. He wore his best suit, dark blue with a small Earth flag pin on his chest. Today was the day humans would meet aliens for the first time. Real aliens from across the galaxy. Jiwon walked beside him. She was a scientist who studied alien life, though she had never met a real alien until today. Her hands kept smoothing down her dress even though it looked perfect. "Are you nervous?" she asked. "Very," Hyunwoo admitted. "You?" Terrified. They both laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that happens when people are too scared to do anything else. The doors ahead opened with a soft sound. Hyunwoo took a deep breath and walked through. The room beyond was huge. The ceiling stretched up so high that clouds could have formed inside. The walls were made of something that looked like pearl and glowed softly. Aliens filled the room. Hyunwoo had seen pictures and videos during his training, but seeing them in person was different. There was a being that looked like it was made of living crystal. Another had 6 legs and moved like water flowing uphill. One creature was just a ball of light that hummed when it moved. At the center of the room stood the Valorian delegation. They looked almost human, which somehow made them more strange. They were tall and thin with skin that shifted between blue and purple like oil on water. Their eyes were large and completely black, no white parts at all. They had 3 fingers on each hand and moved with a grace that seemed impossible. Ambassador Krell stepped forward. He was the leader of this first meeting. His voice came out smooth and kind. "Welcome, humans of Earth," he said. "We are honored to meet you at last." Hyunwoo bowed slightly. He had practiced this greeting 100 times. "Thank you, Ambassador. Earth is honored to join the galactic community." The words felt too big for his mouth, too important. Somewhere far below on Earth, billions of people were watching this moment. Hyunwoo tried not to think about that. If he did, he might forget how to talk. Krell gestured to the being beside him. She was smaller than the other Valorians, with skin that glowed more purple than blue. "This is Thalma," Krell said. "She is our empath. Among our people, it is tradition for an empath to make first contact. She will touch you, sense your emotions, and welcome you properly." Hyunwoo nodded. He had read about this in the briefing materials. Valorians could feel emotions through touch. It was supposed to be a sign of trust and openness. Thalma stepped forward. Her large black eyes studied him carefully. When she spoke, her voice was soft like wind through grass. "Do not fear," she said. "I have done this with 47 species. It is painless. You will feel nothing but warmth." She smiled, and Hyunwoo could see she meant to be kind. He held out his arm like he had been taught. Thalma reached out with her 3-fingered hand. Her skin looked soft, almost like velvet. The tips of her fingers were slightly darker than the rest. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready," Hyunwoo said. Her fingers touched his forearm. The contact was gentle, barely there. Her skin felt warm and smooth. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then Thalma's eyes went wide. The black seemed to spread across her whole face. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out at first. Her hand stayed pressed against Hyunwoo's arm like it was frozen there. Then she screamed. The sound was terrible. It was not loud, but it was full of such horror that everyone in the room froze. It was the sound of someone seeing something that broke their mind. Thalma pulled her hand away and staggered backward. Her legs gave out and she fell. Other Valorians rushed to catch her before she hit the ground, but they were too slow. She crumpled like paper, her eyes rolling back until only white showed. The room exploded into chaos. Alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed from somewhere in the ceiling. Aliens rushed in from every door, some carrying medical equipment, others carrying weapons. Hyunwoo stood frozen, his arm still held out where Thalma had touched it. "What did you do?" Krell shouted. His kind voice was gone, replaced by something hard and angry. "What did you do to her?" "Nothing," Hyunwoo said. His voice came out too high. "I just stood here." "She touched me." Guards surrounded him. They were not Valorian. They looked like giant insects made of metal. They did not point their weapons at him, but they held them ready. Jiwon pushed through the crowd and grabbed Hyunwoo's shoulder. "He did nothing wrong," she said firmly. "You saw it. He just stood there." Medical personnel crouched around Thalma. One of them held a device that glowed over her head. Another was checking the pulse in her neck. Thalma lay completely still, her eyes closed now, her chest barely moving. "She is alive," one of the medics said. "But her mind, something is wrong. She is not responding to anything." Krell turned to face Hyunwoo and Jiwon. His face was hard to read, but his body language showed anger and fear. "You are confined to quarters until we understand what happened," he said. "All humans are confined. First contact is suspended." "Suspended?" Jiwon said. "You cannot blame us for this. We do not even know what happened." "That is exactly the problem," Krell said coldly. "We do not know what you are capable of. Until we do, you are a threat." Guards escorted Hyunwoo and Jiwon out of the room. As they walked through the doors, Hyunwoo looked back. Thalma was being lifted onto a floating stretcher. Her hand hung down limp. The same hand that had touched him only moments ago. What had she felt? What had she seen inside him that made her scream like that? Hyunwoo thought about his life. He thought about the things he tried not to remember. The accident when he was young. The 3 days alone. The nightmares that still came sometimes. The anger he kept locked away. The dark thoughts everyone had but never spoke about. Was that what she felt? Was that what broke her? The guards put them in a white room with no windows. The door sealed shut with a sound like a sigh. Ji-won sat down on one of the beds and put her head in her hands. "This is a disaster," she said. Hyunwoo sat beside her. His arm still tingled where Thalma had touched him. He rubbed the spot, but the feeling would not go away. "What if it is us?" he said quietly. "What if there is something wrong with humans? Something the aliens cannot handle?" Ji-won looked at him. Her eyes were red, but no tears fell. "Then we find out what it is," she said, "and we fix it. We have to." Outside their room, they could hear voices speaking in languages they did not understand. Somewhere, the Galactic Council was meeting to decide what to do about Earth, about humans, about the species that made an empath scream and fall unconscious with a single touch. Hyunwoo lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Billions of people on Earth were waiting to hear good news about humanity's place in the stars. Instead, they would learn that humans were different, possibly dangerous, possibly wrong in some deep and terrible way. He closed his eyes and tried not to think about Thalma's scream, but it echoed in his mind over and over, asking a question he could not answer. "What are you?" 3 days passed in the White Room. Hyunwoo and Jiwon were given food and water, but no information. They could hear footsteps outside their door at all hours. Sometimes voices argued in alien languages. Once they heard what sounded like crying. On the 4th day, the door opened. A new alien stood there. This one looked like a tall bird made of silver feathers. Its eyes were golden and sharp. "I am Velthar," it said. Its voice sounded like music played on crystal glasses. "I lead the investigation team. You will come with me, Hyunwoo." Jiwon stood up quickly. "I am coming too," she said. "No, only Hyunwoo. He needs support." He needs to be examined," Velthar interrupted. "You may observe from another room, but you cannot interfere." They walked through corridors that curved and twisted. Other aliens stopped to stare at them. Some looked curious. Others looked afraid. One small creature actually ran away when it saw Hyunwoo coming. The examination room was all white and silver. Strange machines hung from the ceiling on long arms. A chair sat in the middle that looked more like a throne made of light. "Sit," Velthar said. Hyunwoo sat. The light formed around him, warm but not hot. Screens appeared in the air, showing images he could not understand. "How is Thalma?" Hyunwoo asked. Velthar's feathers ruffled slightly. "Alive, awake, but changed. She will not speak to most of us. She only asks for you. For me, why? That is what we need to understand." Machines hummed to life. Hyunwoo felt nothing, but the screens filled with colors and shapes. Velthar watched them carefully, making small sounds of surprise or concern. Hours passed. Other scientists came and went. They spoke in their own languages, sometimes pointing at Hyunwoo, sometimes at the screens. He sat still and tried not to feel like a specimen in a jar. Finally, Velthar dismissed the others. The room became quiet. "We have found something," Velthar said. "Something we did not expect. What is it?" The alien sat down, which seemed significant somehow. Like what it had to say was too heavy to say standing. "When Thalma touched you, she did not just feel your current emotions. She felt everything. Your entire life, your memories, your fears, your angers. All of it at once." Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop. "That has never happened before." "No, with other species, empaths sense the present moment. The current emotional state. Clean and simple." Velthar paused. "But humans are not clean or simple." The alien touched the screen and an image appeared. It showed a brain, but with layers and layers of color flowing through it. This is your mind while you sit here calmly, Velthar said. You are peaceful on the surface, but underneath you are processing thousands of thoughts and feelings every second. Fear, hope, curiosity, anger, joy, sadness, all at the same time. Is that not normal? No, Velthar said simply. Most species feel one primary emotion at a time. They move from one to another cleanly. You feel everything at once and somehow function anyway. Hyunwoo did not know what to say. He had always thought his mind was normal. Everyone he knew seemed the same way, complicated, full of contradictions. There is more, Velthar continued. We found something deeper, something that frightened us. The alien changed the image. Now it showed layers going back, like looking down through clear water to a dark bottom. You carry the emotional weight of your ancestors, not in memory but in instinct. Fear of predators that no longer exist, rage from ancient survival battles. The need to fight or run built into every cell. Evolution, Hyunwoo said. Yes, we learned about this in school. You learned about it, Velthar said. But you do not understand what it means. Most species evolved in safer conditions. They developed intelligence without constant threat. Humans did not. You became smart while still being hunted, while still hunting. The alien stood and paced, its feathers making soft sounds. Every human carries a predator inside them, a survivor, something that knows how to kill and wants to live no matter the cost. But you also carry civilization, morality, kindness, love. These two things war inside you constantly. We control it, Hyunwoo said. We choose to be good. Yes, Velthar said. And that is what broke Thalma's mind. She felt you making that choice. She felt the darkness you carry and the light you choose. Both at once. The contradiction was too much. Jiwan's voice came from a speaker somewhere. So humans are dangerous? Velthar looked toward where her voice came from. All species can be dangerous, it said. But humans are dangerous to themselves. You fight a war inside your own minds every day. Most species cannot understand that. They cannot imagine it. Hyunwoo thought about his childhood. The accident that killed his parents. The shuttle crash. The 3 days he spent alone in the wreckage, surrounded by bodies. He was only 8 years old. He had been so hungry, so scared he had thought about eating. No, he pushed that memory away. He always pushed it away. But Thalma had felt it. She had felt the moment when an 8-year-old boy considered doing something terrible to survive. And she had felt the horror he still carried about that thought, even though he never did it, even though he was rescued in time. I understand now, Hyunwoo said quietly. She felt my worst moments, my darkest thoughts. Yes, Velthar said. But she also felt something else. She felt that you survived them, that you chose not to let them control you, that you became a diplomat, a peacemaker, despite carrying that darkness inside you. The alien came closer. Most species could not do that. If they felt such things, they would break. But humans feel them every day and keep going. That is what Thalma could not understand. How you stay sane. How you stay kind. Over the next week, the aliens tested other humans. They brought up Dong-min, a soldier from Earth. Then Mira, a doctor. Then Sujin, a teacher who worked with children. Each one overwhelmed the empaths who touched them. Each one carried the same complicated storm of emotions. The soldier had seen combat and carried guilt for the people he killed, even though it was his duty. The doctor had watched patients die and felt both sadness and relief when their suffering ended. The teacher loved children but sometimes felt frustrated and angry with them. Every human was a contradiction. Light and dark. Love and hate. Creation and destruction. All mixed together in ways that made no sense to aliens who felt emotions purely, one at a time. The Galactic Council met to discuss the findings. Hyunwoo and the other humans were allowed to listen but not speak. They are unstable, one alien said. It looked like a floating brain in a glass case. Their minds are chaos. They cannot be trusted. They are survivors, another argued. This one was made of rock that moved. They endure what would destroy us. That is strength, not weakness. They think about violence constantly, a third said. Every one of them. Even the teacher. Even the diplomat. They all carry the capacity to kill. But they choose not to. Jiwan's voice rang out. She was not supposed to speak, but she did anyway. Yes, we think about violence. Yes, we carry anger and fear and terrible thoughts. But we choose every day to be better than those thoughts. That is what makes us human. The room fell silent. The aliens looked at each other. communicating in ways humans could not understand. Finally, Velthar spoke. The human G1 is correct. We have been judging them for what they carry. We should judge them for what they choose. But what happens when they stop choosing? The floating brain asked. What happens when the darkness wins? No one had an answer for that. That night, Hyunwoo was taken to see Thelma. She sat in a medical room staring at her hands. When he entered, she looked up. Her black eyes seemed even larger than before. You are still here, she said. Where would I go? Away from me. I screamed when I touched you. I made you seem like a monster to the council. Hyunwoo sat down across from her. You felt the truth, he said. I am a monster. I just choose not to act like one. Thelma shook her head slowly. No, you are not a monster. You are something I have no word for. You are broken and whole at the same time. Damaged and healed. Weak and strong. We call that being human, Hyunwoo said with a small smile. Thelma stared at him for a long moment. I want to touch you again, she said. What? Why? Because I need to understand. I need to know how you live like that, how you carry all that pain and fear and anger and still smile, still make jokes, still choose kindness. It might hurt you again, Hyunwoo warned. I know, Thelma said, but I think understanding you might be the most important thing I ever do. She reached out her hand. Hyunwoo looked at it for a long moment, then reached out his own. Okay, he said. But slowly this time. Thelma prepared for 3 days before attempting contact again. She meditated in ways that Hyunwoo could not understand. She spoke with other Valorian empaths, learning techniques that had never been needed before. She practiced on recordings of human voices, trying to build tolerance to the complexity. The council watched everything. They had set up cameras and sensors throughout the medical bay. If something went wrong, they wanted to know exactly how and why. You do not have to do this, Hyunwoo told her on the morning of the attempt. Yes, I do, Thelma replied. She looked tired but determined. If I cannot understand you, how can anyone else? And if no one understands you, humanity will never be accepted. They sat facing each other in a room full of monitoring equipment. Velthar stood nearby with medical staff. Jiwan watched from behind a glass wall, her hand pressed against it. I will go slowly, Thelma said. I will not go deep at first. Just the surface. What does that mean? I will feel only your current emotions. Not your memories. Not your past. Just the now. She reached out. Hyunwoo met her hand with his own. Their fingers touched lightly. Thelma closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then she gasped softly. I feel calm, she said. You are calm. But beneath the calm is worry. You are worried about me, worried about your people, worried about saying the wrong thing. She paused. But deeper still is can hope? Yes, you hope this works. You hope we can understand each other. That is right, Hyunwoo said quietly. But there is more, Thelma continued. Her eyes were still closed. Beneath the hope is fear. You are afraid I will be hurt again, afraid you are broken somehow, afraid that humans do not belong in the stars. Hyunwoo felt his chest tighten. She was right. He had not even admitted those fears to himself. And beneath the fear, Thelma's voice grew softer, there is something darker. Anger. You are angry at the council for judging you, angry at me for making you seem like a threat. But you push it down. You choose not to feel it. I do not want to be angry, Hyunwoo said. But you are, Thelma said. She opened her eyes and looked at him. That is what I did not understand before. You feel everything, but you choose what to act on. The anger is real. You just decide it is not useful. She pulled her hand away slowly. She was breathing hard, but she was not screaming. She was not unconscious. How do you do it? She asked. How do you hold all of that inside without exploding? Hyunwoo thought about it. Practice, he said finally. Humans learn to control emotions from childhood. We have to. If we acted on every feeling, society would fall apart. But it must be exhausting. Sometimes, Hyunwoo admitted, but it is also normal. We do not know any other way. Velthar stepped forward. You managed to tolerate the contact this time. What changed? Thelma looked at her hands. I went in expecting chaos, expecting contradiction, so when I felt it, I was not surprised. She looked at Hyunwoo. But I want to go deeper. I want to feel the memories, the history. I want to understand where all of this comes from. That was what broke you before, Velthar warned. I know, but I will be ready this time." They agreed to try again the next day. That night, Hyunwoo could not sleep. He lay in his quarters thinking about what Thalma would find if she went deep into his mind. She would feel the crash, the bodies, the hunger, the cold, the 3 days of waiting. She would feel the nightmares that followed, the years of therapy, the medication, the slow, painful climb back to normal life. She would feel the anger he carried at the universe for taking his parents, the guilt he felt for surviving when they did not, the dark thoughts that sometimes whispered in the quiet moments. She would feel all of it, and she would know that he was not special. Every human carried similar burdens. Different details, same weight. The next morning, they prepared for the deeper contact. This time, medical equipment was attached directly to Thalma's head. If her mind started to shut down, they could break the connection immediately. "How far do you want to go?" Hyunwoo asked. "As far as I can," Thalma said. "I need to understand the depth of what you carry." They joined hands again. This time, Thalma did not close her eyes. She stared directly at Hyunwoo as she let her mind sink into his. Seconds passed. Her breathing became faster. Her grip tightened. "I feel it," she whispered. "The crash. You were so small. So scared." Hyunwoo said nothing. He tried to stay calm, to be a safe anchor for her to hold on to. "You thought you would die. You wanted to die because the pain was too much." Thalma's voice shook. "But you also wanted to live. Both at once. The contradiction almost tore you apart." Her eyes began to water. Empaths could cry, Hyunwoo realized. They had tear ducts like humans. "You thought about—" She stopped. "No, I will not say it. But you thought it, and then you hated yourself for thinking it. Even though you were a child. Even though you were starving." "Yes," Hyunwoo said quietly. "And then you were rescued. But the thoughts did not leave. They stayed with you. They grew into nightmares and fears and—" Thalma stopped suddenly. Her whole body went rigid. "What is it?" Velthar asked. "I see further back," Thalma said. Her voice sounded distant. "Not his memories. Something older. Something inherited. The evolutionary trauma," Velthar said. "We warned you about that." "It is not just trauma," Thalma said. "It is knowledge. His body knows how to survive. His instincts know when to fight and when to run. His brain is wired for violence even though he has never been violent." She looked at Hyunwoo with wonder and horror mixed together. "You are all soldiers," she said. "Every human, even the children, even the peaceful ones. You are all built for war that you never fight." "We fight it," Hyunwoo said. "We just fight it inside ourselves." Thalma held the contact for 5 minutes. When she finally pulled away, she was shaking and sweating. But she was conscious. She was whole. "I understand now," she said. "Or at least I begin to understand." She stood up and addressed the cameras, knowing the council was watching. "Humans are not dangerous because they are violent. Violence is common in the galaxy. Humans are extraordinary because they are violent by nature, but civilized by choice." She turned to look at Hyunwoo. "Every moment of every day, every human decides to be better than their instincts tell them to be. They feel anger and choose kindness. They feel fear and choose bravery. They feel hatred and choose love, not because it is easy, but because they believe it is right." Velthar made a sound like wind chimes. "But what happens when they choose wrong? When the instincts win? Then they fail," Thalma said simply. "And they try again. And again. And again. Human history is full of failures. But they keep trying. That is what makes them remarkable." Over the next days, Thalma worked with the other humans who had been brought to the ship. She touched Dongmin and felt the weight of war. She touched Mira and felt the burden of choosing who lives and who dies. She touched Sujin and felt the endless patience required to shape young minds without breaking them. Each human was different in detail, but the same in structure. All carried darkness. All chose light. All failed sometimes but kept choosing anyway. Thalma wrote reports. She gave presentations. She argued with council members who called humans unstable or dangerous. She showed them the recordings of the contacts and explained what they meant. "You see chaos," she told the council. "I see strength. You see darkness, I see the daily choice to overcome it." But not everyone was convinced. A group of aliens called the Korthan demanded proof. Their leader, a being that looked like living metal, stood before the council. "Words are easy," it said. "Empaths can be fooled. We need real proof that humans can control themselves under pressure. We need to test them." "Test them how?" Jiwon asked. She had been allowed to speak at council meetings now. put them in situations where their instincts would tell them to be violent, to be selfish, to survive at any cost. See what they choose, Hyunwoo felt cold. He knew what kind of test they meant. They wanted to see humans at their worst. They wanted to prove that the darkness would win. We accept, he said before anyone could stop him. Jiwon turned to him. Hyunwoo, no, you do not know what they will do. I know that we have to prove ourselves, Hyunwoo said. Words are not enough. Let them test us. The Korthan leader made a sound like scraping metal. Good. We will design scenarios. You will face them, and we will see what humans truly are beneath all the pretty words. That night, Thalma came to Hyunwoo's quarters. This is a mistake, she said. The Korthan want you to fail. They will design tests that push you toward violence. I know, Hyunwoo said. Then why agree? Because they are right. Words are not enough. We need to show them who we are, not just tell them. Thalma sat down beside him. I will be there, she said. I will link with you during the tests. I will feel what you feel and testify to the truth of your choices. That might be dangerous for you. I know, Thalma said, but you taught me something. You choose to do hard things because they are right, not because they are safe. So I choose that too. Hyunwoo smiled sadly. You are learning bad habits from humans. Maybe, Thalma said. Or maybe I am learning what courage really means. The test chambers were built in 3 days. 4 identical rooms, each one designed to simulate extreme situations. The council would watch from observation decks while 4 humans faced scenarios designed to break their civilized choices. Hyunwoo stood with the other chosen humans in a waiting room. Dongmin, the soldier, checked his breathing in the way military people do before combat. Sujin, the teacher, kept her hands clasped together tightly. Borum, an artist from Seoul, stared at the wall with distant eyes. They want us to fail, Dongmin said quietly. They want to see us become animals. Then we do not give them what they want, Jiwon said. She was not being tested, but she had argued her way into the observation deck to watch. The Korthan leader entered the room. Its metallic body reflected the lights in strange patterns. The rules are simple, it said. You will enter simulations. They will feel real. Your body will believe they are real. You will face choices. We will watch what you choose. What kind of choices? Borum asked. Her voice was soft. The kind that reveal truth, the Korthan said. You cannot prepare for them. You cannot plan. You can only react. Thalma came in behind the Korthan. She carried a small device. I will maintain an empathic link with all 4 of you, she announced. Not to interfere, only to witness. The council will know exactly what you feel and why you choose what you choose. The Korthan made an angry sound. That was not agreed upon. It is now, Velthar said, entering behind Thalma. If we test humans, we test them fairly. We see not just their actions but their hearts. The Korthan could not argue with that. The test began. Hyunwoo entered his chamber first. The door sealed behind him. For a moment, everything was white and empty. Then reality shifted. He was standing in a burning building. Smoke filled the air. Heat pressed against his skin. Through the smoke, he saw 2 doors. Behind one, he could hear children screaming. Behind the other, he heard an adult voice calling for help. The building was collapsing. He could save one group or the other. Not both. His instinct screamed at him to save the children. That was the obvious choice. The moral choice. But something made him pause. He listened harder. The adult voice was calling instructions to children on the other side. The adult was a teacher, trapped with students, trying to keep them calm while fire surrounded them. If he saved the children through the first door, they would live, but be traumatized and alone. If he saved the teacher through the second door, the teacher could then help him save the others. Maybe, if there was time. His lungs burned. His body wanted to run. His fear wanted to freeze. His training said save the many over the few, but his heart said think, plan, find another way. He ran to the second door and pulled it open. The teacher stumbled out. It was not really a teacher, just a simulation, but his mind made it real. Together they ran to the first door. The ceiling began to fall. They reached the children. Together they guided them through the smoke. Some made it out. Some did not. In the end, Hyunwoo stood outside the burning building, covered in ash, having saved 6 of 10. Not good enough. Never good enough. but he had tried for more than the easy choice. The simulation ended. Hyunwoo stood in the white room again, shaking. In her chamber, Sujin faced a different test. She was in a classroom with children who were not really children. One of them had a weapon, a simple knife. The child was angry, hurt, threatening the others. Her instinct was to protect the innocent children, to stop the threat. Her training said neutralize danger immediately, but she saw in the child's eyes something she recognized. Pain. Fear. A child acting out because no one had helped them. No one had listened. She spoke softly. She moved slowly. She did not treat the child like a threat. She treated them like a wounded animal that needed care, not punishment. I know you are hurting, she said. I know you are scared. But hurting others will not make you feel better. Let me help you. It took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of patient words while her body screamed at her to run or fight. 20 minutes of choosing to see a hurt child instead of a danger. The child put down the knife. Dongmin's test was combat. He faced enemies who would kill him if given the chance. His military training was clear. Eliminate threats. Survive. Win. But as he fought, he realized these enemies were just scared. They were defending something. Their home, maybe. Their family. He fought, yes. His body knew how. But he fought to disable, not to kill. He fought to create space, not to destroy. And when he had the chance to end one of the enemies permanently, he chose to knock them unconscious instead. It cost him. He took injuries he could have avoided. But he left the simulation knowing no one had died by his hand. Borum's test was the cruelest. She was shown beauty being destroyed, art being burned, music being silenced. Everything she valued turned to ash before her eyes, and she was offered a choice. She could save the art by sacrificing people, or she could save the people and let the art burn. Her soul screamed. Art was meaning. Art was immortality. Art mattered. But people mattered more. She watched centuries of culture burn and chose to save strangers instead. She cried while doing it, but she did it. When all 4 tests ended, the humans gathered in the waiting room. They did not speak. They were exhausted in ways that had nothing to do with physical effort. Thalma emerged from her meditation chamber. She looked drained but peaceful. I felt everything, she said to the council through the communication system. I felt their fear, their anger, their instinct to survive at any cost, and I felt them choose differently. Not because it was easy, because they believed it was right. The council gathered to review the results. Arguments filled the chamber. Some aliens praised the humans. Others pointed out their failures, the children who died in the fire, the injuries Dongmin suffered, the art that burned. They are not perfect, the Korthan leader said. They failed in every scenario. They succeeded in every scenario, Thalma countered. Success is not perfection. Success is trying to be better than your nature demands. Velthar stood to speak. I have studied humans for weeks now. I have seen their darkness. I have measured their capacity for violence. And I have come to understand something important. The chamber fell silent. Every species in this council evolved past their violent stage before developing space travel. We left our darkness behind on our homeworlds. We grew up, then we went to the stars. Velthar gestured toward the humans. They did not get that chance. They reached the stars while still fighting themselves. They brought their darkness with them because they could not leave it behind. And instead of letting it control them, they chose to control it. Every day, every moment. That is not weakness. That is strength we cannot imagine. Another council member spoke. This one looked like living crystal. But what happens when they fail? When the darkness wins? Then they fail, Velthar said. And they know it. Human history is full of failures. Wars, genocides, terrible choices. But they remember those failures. They teach them to their children. They make art about them. They build monuments to remind themselves never to do those things again. They use their past darkness to choose present light. The Korthan leader was not convinced. Words. Philosophy. Show me proof they can be trusted with the greater galaxy. Hyunwoo stood up. He was tired of being silent. You want proof? He said, here is proof. You tested us hoping we would fail. Hoping we would show our worst selves. And we knew that. We knew you wanted us to be monsters. And we chose not to be anyway. He stepped forward. You think you are better than us because you left your darkness behind, but we carry ours with us and choose light anyway. Which takes more strength? To have no darkness or to have darkness and refuse to let it win? Silence fell across the council. Finally, the crystal being spoke. The human makes a point. Perhaps we have been judging them by the wrong standard. Perhaps the question is not whether they are dangerous, but whether they can be trusted to fight their own danger. A vote was called. The council would decide whether to accept humanity or reject them, whether to let Earth join the stars or leave them isolated. As the aliens debated, Hyun-woo sat with Thalma. "Thank you," he said, "for trying to understand us." "I should thank you," Thalma said. "You taught me something I did not know I needed to learn." "What is that?" "That there is honor in struggle. That choosing to be good when you could be evil means more than simply being incapable of evil. That your flaws make your virtues more beautiful, not less." She touched his hand briefly. "You are all broken," she said gently, "and you are all trying to heal, and that trying matters more than the breaking ever could." The vote was counted. The results appeared on the central display. It was close, closer than Hyun-woo had hoped. But the number that mattered was higher than 50%. Humanity was accepted. The chamber erupted in noise. Some celebrating, some protesting, some simply confused about what this would mean. Hyun-woo felt tears on his face. He did not try to hide them. Let them see. Let them know that humans cried when they were happy, sad, angry, and overwhelmed all at once. Let them know that was normal for his people. Ji-won ran to him and hugged him tightly. Dongmin clasped his shoulder. Sujin smiled through her own tears. Borum simply nodded, understanding passing between them without words. They had done it. Humanity had proven itself worthy not by being perfect. The news reached Earth 3 hours later. Radio waves carrying a simple message. Humanity was accepted. The celebrations began immediately. Cities erupted in joy. People danced in streets. Strangers hugged strangers. Fireworks painted the sky in every color. But aboard the council ship, things were quieter, more complicated. Hyun-woo stood in an observation deck watching Earth spin below. It looked peaceful from up here. Beautiful. Hard to believe that down there billions of people carried the same darkness he did. The same contradictions. The same daily war between instinct and choice. "You are thinking too much," Thalma said, appearing beside him. "Is that possible? For humans?" "Probably not," she smiled slightly. "Your minds never stop." "How are the other empaths handling this?" Thalma's expression grew serious. "Some are afraid. They say they will never touch a human. Others are curious. They want to understand what I understand." She paused. "I have been asked to write a guide. How to safely make contact with humans. What to expect. How to prepare." "That sounds important." "It is. But it is also sad." "Why?" "Because it means admitting that humans are different. That you need special handling. Like dangerous chemicals or wild animals." Hyun-woo felt a weight in his chest. He had hoped that acceptance meant being treated as equals, not as hazards to be managed. Thalma must have sensed his feelings because she touched his arm gently. Just a brief contact, but enough to share understanding. "You are different," she said softly. "But different does not mean less. It means unique, special, worth understanding even if understanding is hard." Over the next weeks, humanity began the slow process of integration into the galactic community. It was not easy. Some species refused to interact with humans at all. Others were fascinated but cautious, like scientists studying something beautiful but potentially dangerous. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges were planned. The first human students were accepted into alien universities. The first alien tourists were cleared to visit Earth, but tensions remained. Small incidents kept happening. A human diplomat lost their temper at a meeting, and 3 alien observers fled in terror. A human child touched an empath at a cultural exchange, and the empath had to be hospitalized for shock. A human artist created a painting so emotionally intense that 2 aliens fainted just looking at it. Humans tried to be careful. They warned others before making physical contact. They tried to moderate their emotions. They apologized constantly for being too intense, too complicated, too much. It hurt Hyun-woo to watch his people apologize for existing. Velthar noticed this too. "They are making themselves smaller," the alien observed one day, "trying to fit into spaces not designed for them. What should they do instead?" Hyun-woo asked. "Be themselves, fully. The galaxy does not need humans who pretend to be simple." The galaxy needs humans who are courageously complex. Velthar had been working on something, a research project that involved humans and empaths working together. The goal was not to make humans less intense, but to help other species understand intensity. You are teaching us something we did not know we needed to learn, Velthar explained. Most species think that peace comes from eliminating conflict. Humans show us that peace can come from managing conflict, from choosing peace despite having the capacity for war. The project involved Thalma training other empaths, teaching them techniques to withstand the emotional complexity of human contact. It was slow work. Many empaths failed. Some refused to try, but a few succeeded, and those few began to spread understanding throughout the galaxy. One of those successful empaths was named Kira. She came from a species of beings who lived in water and communicated through light patterns. She volunteered to make contact with Mira, the human doctor. The contact lasted 10 minutes. When it ended, Kira glowed with colors that meant awe and respect in her language. I felt her watch people die, Kira reported to the council. I felt her grief, her frustration, her anger at diseases she could not cure, and I felt her choose to try again, and again, and again, never giving up even when giving up would hurt less. Kira turned to address the full council. We have been wrong. Humans do not need to be managed or contained. They need to be learned from. They have something we lack. They have chosen strength over easy peace. More empaths made contact with humans. Each one came away changed. Not broken, but expanded. Their understanding of consciousness itself grew deeper. Borum, the artist, became something of a celebrity. Her art was too intense for most aliens to experience directly, but recordings of it became famous. Aliens would watch videos of other aliens reacting to her paintings, trying to understand what moved them so deeply. One day, Borum created a piece specifically for the council. She called it The Human Heart. It was not a painting. It was a multimedia experience. Sound, light, movement, scent, all of it designed to give aliens a tiny glimpse into the human emotional experience. The presentation hall was filled to capacity. Aliens from every member species came to witness it. The piece began softly. Gentle colors, quiet music. Then slowly, layer by layer, Borum added complexity, contradictions, beautiful melodies mixed with harsh sounds, bright colors next to deep shadows, everything flowing together in ways that should not work but somehow did. Some aliens left. It was too much for them, but many stayed. And when it ended, the hall was silent. Finally, an ancient alien spoke. This one was older than most civilizations, a being of pure energy that had seen countless species rise and fall. I have lived for 10,000 of your years, it said. I have seen empires born and die. I have watched species evolve and transcend, and in all that time I have never seen anything like this. Is that good or bad? Borum asked quietly. It is true, the Ancient One said. Truth is neither good nor bad. It simply is. And this is the truest expression of consciousness I have ever witnessed. Messy, contradictory, painful, beautiful. All at once. The ancient being floated closer to Borum. You make us uncomfortable because you remind us of what we lost when we became civilized. The passion, the struggle, the meaning that comes from choosing rather than simply being. After that night, things began to change, slowly but noticeably. Other species started to examine their own assumptions about consciousness and emotion. Some began to wonder if their own peaceful, logical existence might be missing something. Philosophical movements started, artistic revolutions. Some aliens began to study human history, not as a warning, but as an example. They looked at humanity's failures and successes, its wars and peace treaties, its art and science, and they found patterns worth understanding. Meanwhile, humans were learning too. They discovered that their intensity, their complexity, their contradictions, all the things they had sometimes seen as flaws, were actually gifts. Not every species could hold love and hate, fear and courage, creation and destruction all at once. Not every species could walk beside darkness every day and still choose light. That ability was rare, special, powerful. 6 months after first contact, Hyun-woo was promoted to Chief Human Ambassador. His first task was to establish permanent human embassies throughout Council space. The night before his first official mission, Thelma came to say goodbye. I will miss working with you, she said. Will you continue the empath training? Yes, more empaths volunteer every day now. They want to understand humans. They want to experience that depth of feeling, even if it is difficult. She sat beside him. You have changed the galaxy, you know. Not through force or technology. Through simply being honestly, completely yourselves. Hyunwoo laughed softly. We did not do anything special. We just exist. That is what makes it special, Thalma said. You exist loudly, fully, without apology. And that gives others permission to do the same. Even aliens? Especially aliens. You show us that it is okay to feel deeply. To struggle. To fail and try again. Those were things we had forgotten were valuable. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Thalma spoke again. I finished my guide. For empaths who want to contact humans, what is it called? The Beautiful Chaos. Understanding Human Consciousness. That is a good title. There is a dedication at the beginning, Thalma said quietly. It says, for Hyunwoo, who taught me that broken crayons still color. Hyunwoo felt tears forming. He did not try to stop them, that is beautiful. It is true. You are all broken in some way. Every human. Cracked by experience, fractured by pain, but you still create, you still love. You still try. And the fact that you do those things despite being broken makes them more meaningful, not less. She stood to leave. Go and represent your people well. Show the galaxy what humans can be when they choose to be their best selves. What if we fail sometimes? Then you fail, Thalma said simply. And then you try again. That is what humans do. Years passed. Humans spread throughout the galaxy. They brought their intensity with them. Their passion. Their complexity. Their beautiful, terrible ability to feel everything at once and somehow function anyway. Some aliens still found them overwhelming. Some still avoided them. But many others sought them out. Human teachers, human artists, human diplomats became valued throughout council space. Not despite their intensity, but because of it. Human music became popular in clubs across 1,000 worlds. Human literature was translated into languages that had no concept of tragedy or